Welcome to SEC Plus. Gary Laney of Advanced Digital here with you, along with Andrew Gribble to my right from AL.com, and to my left, coming to us from Destin, Florida, where the SEC meetings are going on, is Ron Higgins of NOLA.com. And big issues at the SEC meetings include, and probably are dominated by, autonomy for the SEC and the big power conferences. And I guess the discussion is going to come down to, is it inevitable and is it a good thing? And then, Ron, I'll go to you first. What are the big discussion points with that right now?
Well, it's going to happen because, this has been an ongoing discussion now for 2 or 3 years between the major conferences, and they've been pushing to get to this point for the NCAA to do something, and it's finally going to happen, probably in August, but the SEC will discuss it today. How do you pay players with the cost of scholarship being different at different schools? What do you do about, maybe, they've already approved stuff for more meal money or just to give them more food, just little things that have been on the table. And of course, the issue is if the power conferences have this, how this will affect the Louisiana Techs and the mid-majors of the world. And for them, it doesn't look good, but for the power conferences, this has to happen because they don't want to play by those rules anymore, and they shouldn't, because simply they have more money in their budgets to play by a different set of rules.
Andrew, is that a good thing?
It depends on where you're coming from. I'm a mid-major graduate, so when I look at what could happen to my alma mater, I'm kind of concerned. But at the same time, the SEC schools, the big schools, they need to look out for what's best for them. I think that too often we try to picture this as that Alabama and Auburn should care about the smaller schools in the country, and that while maybe that seems idealistic, it's just not the reality. And I think that once we get more clarity on these issues, I think that this won't ultimately kill the smaller schools in athletics, but I think they're just going to have to readjust how they approach things. And it's hard for them to make money. There might have to be cuts for those smaller schools, but it's like Ron said, it's an inevitable reality. I think this is going to happen sooner rather than later, and it'll be interesting to see what these 5 conferences can do when aligned together and doing things on their own set of rules, because it's going to look more and more like professional sports than it did before.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Does this threaten the unity of the NCAA? Are we taking a step toward the Big 5 conferences becoming their own entity separate from the NCAA, or does this kind of save the NCAA from itself and the lawsuits, the Northwestern lawsuit and whatnot? How do you see this going in the long run? Let's go to you first, Ron.
I think it saves the NCAA. I think these conferences don't want to split from the NCAA. They really want to be a part of the NCAA, but they want the NCAA to do what's right for these conferences. So the NCAA has to do this, because these conferences don't want to split from the NCAA. The interesting thing to me is that even within each conference, there's not equality. In the SEC, yeah, it splits its revenue, but there's not even equality within the SEC. There are certain teams in the SEC that are always going to challenge for the football title, and there's some teams really where they don't really have a chance, because some schools have more money in their budgets to spend on how many people they hire in their football staff and support personnel than other schools. And the schools like Alabama, which has almost 40 people on its football staff, including personnel, it's set up like an NFL team. They're always going to they have an advantage over most of the rest of the league because of that. So, to me, it's like there's not even equality in the SEC, but, this will help try to, I guess, push the 5 conferences above everybody else, which they already are.
Yeah, the way Ron describes it, it sounds a lot like Major League Baseball, but the NCAA, the way it's currently set up, is as if the major leagues are also playing in the same conference as AAA and AA. And I think that now this is a step toward maybe separating the major leagues, which would be the Power 5 conference, and the minor leagues, which will be some of those smaller schools. And again, those minor league teams, they don't make anywhere close to the amount of money, and they're going to suffer because of it. But this will end up making the top-of-the-line product better in the long run.
Ron, the SEC teams, because they have more money, have better sound systems in their stadium. Should they be allowed to play music between plays with those great sound systems they have?
I know they're pushing for it. I guess this is the the rest of the athletic directors who want this because they don't have the cowbell rule in their stadium where cowbells can be clanged between plays at Mississippi State. So I guess they feel like they need to have some sort of noise advantage on their home field. Honestly, I don't see how SEC stadiums can get much louder. I don't know if they need a soundtrack to it, but that'll be discussed here. I mean, that's one of the things that's up for a proposal.
Will band directors, Andrew, will band directors show up to oppose this rule so they can play instead of having the music piped in?
I would think. I mean, we all saw what happened at Tennessee. It got pretty nasty there when it looked like when Tennessee wanted to play more piped-in music. The band director of Tennessee didn't like that, and he ultimately he ended up losing that battle. So, I think that certainly covering Alabama, they have the system to do it. Fans are usually pretty noisy between plays, but maybe this will help during some of those dull moments when fans are getting kind of bored and you kind of crank it up. I think that. It's happening at the NFL. I don't see a problem with it at all. I think it'll just make the environment even more fun.
Andrew, at Tennessee, it meant that they could only play Rocky Top 40 times a game instead of 80. That was the problem.
Ron, what are some of the other big issues that you're hearing about over there?
Well, I mean, I think that they'll talk about. I know the ACC is going to experiment with a 30-second shot clock. I expect SEC basketball coaches to kind of bring that up and see if they, kick that around and see if they might want to do it in exhibition games like the ACC is doing this year. I think that'll be brought up. One of the things to be brought up. I think there'll be talk about maybe wanting a college football competition committee, kind of like the NFL has. I think that's something that probably Nick Saban would push for. It seems like there's rule changes every other year, and maybe there's not enough discussion about it, or with the hullabaloo about the no huddle, the discussion back and forth. Now I hear that might be discussed, but the one thing that supposedly won't be discussed is the schedule, even though LSU would like to discuss it because they didn't like it. But the schedule, the 8-game rotation, that's already been voted on. It's set, and I don't know if they can do anything about that.
Andrew, anything jumps out at you out of that?
Well, I think it's great that the scheduling debate is not going to happen at the SEC spring meetings, because I feel like that's been discussed nearly every year. I've been monitoring this stuff, and it kind of at this point, I don't know what there is left to say about it. It's all said and done. But what I've noticed, I feel like in these last few weeks, these ADs have met kind of on their own and just kind of handled some business before SEC spring meetings. It's almost as if the SEC is trying to turn this into a non-event, and it's trying to make this less crazy and hectic and give reporters less reason to chase down ADs in the elevators and in the hotel hallways. So even in my few years of covering SEC spring meetings back in the past, it sure has changed a lot.
All right, there you have it. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, the SEC, what they've tried to do the last few years is they have like 4 AD meetings a year, and they try to get stuff, taking care of those things before they get to Destin, or have things lined up for the presidents before they get to Destin. I think the schedule was one of those things. They really wanted it done before they got to Destin.
All right, there you have it. A week on the beach for Ron. Good for you. Enjoy it. And viewers, come back to us Thursday. We'll talk a little recruiting. Until then, for Ron and Andrew, I'm Gary Laney. So long.